have made cute thing this week. I have made 2 of the most practical and tactical jumper skirts to ever be on the earth.
Giant pockets.
Giant slant pockets up in the front with like extra pocket dividers. This whole front panel is a pocket. This is a pocket. And then I can do this. Yeah, I've got a pocket big enough for a 40-ounce water bottle. That is its slightly less successful twin. I did the khaki one first. And today we're going to talk about how I made them. But first, I'll give a little preamble for anyone wondering what this project is even for. Joe and I are going on our honeymoon in Japan, and I want to travel very light. We want to be able to go to as many places as possible, and part of that is doing a capsule wardrobe where everything works together and everything matches, and this is the first leg of that. This is the easy leg. The next thing I'm doing is going to be the difficult leg, which is the blouses, which are going to be difficult because I want to do them in stretch fabric, and I hate stretch fabric. But this are made of a beautiful, like, nice weight cotton twill. My dream for this capsule wardrobe, I want natural fabrics for their breathability and their tendency to be less stinky than polyester fabrics. And I want a lot of pockets. I want to look really cute because I'm gonna vlog, and I want it to be my personal style, which is obviously very inspired by Japanese fashion. So like the reality of what I'm doing here is I'm trying to take Lolita fashion and make it both super practical for travel, but also look like normal enough to where I don't like stick out like a sore thumb. And also try to make people think I'm maybe European and not American. So the pattern for the bodice part of this is actually just a slightly modified version of the JSK bodice pattern that I actually already have on Patreon. The only difference between that pattern and this one is I changed this part of the neckline. The JSK one comes in a little more this way, and I wanted it to scoop out a little more, and so I just fussed with it until it did that. But the big thing is, if you have this pattern, you've used this pattern, I also have this available as a gridded pattern, so you should be able to, through the power of math, resize this pattern to whatever size you are. If you've already done that, if you already have this pattern and you already like the way it looks on you, only thing you need to do to it, besides changing this if you want to, is cutting off the seam allowances at these points, because none of this is lined. And I have alternatives for people that don't have a serger, but a lot of this relied on a serger and bias tape. This is the pattern for the skirt. This is free real estate though, so the panels are just trapezoids. The middle one, because I did this kind of pocket, you want the middle one to be about half of your waist measurement, but then the back ones can be however big you want with them, because I just did lazy lady pleats. This is the front panel, but I've essentially taken the top 2 inches off the top of that pattern and folded each of those panels down to just be a double fold hem at the top. But what this is that front bodice piece cut out twice with both of the tops double fold hemmed down, and then another piece that's like the same pattern piece but shorter, also double fold hem, and then 2 little strips that have literally just been pressed on either side and then top stitched on either side. I didn't actually like make a tube and turn them inside out because it's really hard to do that with this twill. The one thing about this twill, it's a little thick. It's actually so thick that it did something that has never happened to me before. When I was sewing this part together, obviously, all it takes to make this into a bunch of pockets is to sew them all together. But I'm not going to line this thing, so I needed to serge them all together. And while on the khaki one, I didn't have any problem just serging through the sides of that, because that one, I didn't do the extra like middle pocket that's right here. But when my serger got to this part on this and had to go now through not just these 2 layers, but also all of the layers through the top of this part of the pocket, which is double folded, and then also the strap, which is folded over. My serger was then going through, like, I don't know, upwards of 16 to 20 layers of cotton twill, and I, for the first time, broke 2 needles on my serger. Not at the same time, mind you. I broke one and then tried to keep going, and then I broke another one. I've had that serger for like 3 years, and I think I've replaced a needle on it once. Because of this, I had to replace more serger needles than I have ever had to replace before. Though, my sewing machine had no problem with the 16 to 20 layers of cotton twill. That's all it is. It's just a bunch of the same pieces, and when they're all basted together, you then get a pocket that is literally the size, like this goes all the way down to here, and this one goes to here. These are great. Anyway, that's the center front panel. Next up is some bias tape. I made bias tape. I don't remember the last time I made bias tape, but it's been a while. But my goodness, does making your own bias tape for a thing like this look so nice. Again, a lot of the finishing with this is a serger and then bias tape. And if you do not have a serger, the alternative is you make the bodice twice and then do all of the stuff I do with bias tape and just bag line it maybe around the neckline you could. But here's a fun little trick. So on the khaki one, I didn't do this, but this here is this bodice side front. And what I did was I went ahead and serged the side front seam and the side seam and across the shoulder seam. But for what will become the armpit and for what would then become the part right here, I left them alone because they're gonna get bias taped. However, before I sewed the side fronts to the fronts, I put the bias tape on the side fronts just like halfway, so I only sewed one side of the bias tape in, and I also only did it for like a few inches up, and that is because this is already double folded hemmed for the sake of the pocket. The bias tape can't then come down and over this. I mean, I guess you could do that, and just like lower the lip of the pocket. But I was like, what if I just go ahead and install it so that way part of the bias tape just ends up going into the seam, which is what it does. This bias tape just comes down and ends in the seam in here. I don't know, I thought this was pretty smart, but you do have to do it before you sew it together. So then this is it going together, very simple. We've gone back to the top-down shot, which I really only like for things like that to show you how the pattern goes together, because I feel like the top-down shot is boring. But okay, now that we're getting to the bias tape getting installed, are y'all ready for a bias tape explanation? Because I have prepared a blast from the past from 2 different videos to give y'all maybe a refresher, maybe a first timer on what bias tape is and why it's important and how it works. We've got from the archive bias tape.
Bias tape is made when you cut strips of fabric on a 45-degree angle. So fabric has a weave, right? The fibers parallel to the selvage are called the grain, and the fibers perpendicular are called the cross grain. Bias literally just refers to the angle, but it's important because it's where those fibers are crossing, which gives it some stretch. This is why we use bias tape for curved seams. That extra stretch makes even non-stretch fabrics able to curve. So once I had my strips, I took out my bias tape maker, which is just this little thing that helps you do the folds. The spandex again will melt if it takes direct heat from the iron, so that's why I'm using a pressing cloth. If you've never attached binding before, it's actually pretty simple. You just need to unfold the strip on the top side of your fabric, right sides together, and straight stitch it down. Then you can just fold it to the underside, and there's a couple different ways to secure the bottom. And I like to pin it because I'm going to be doing a stitch in the ditch. You want to take this edge and fold it to where you can kind of feel that it is further out than this edge, so that when I put a pin in it, I caught that side, right? So that way I know when I do my stitch in the ditch, it's gonna catch this side. Okay, so stitch in the ditch literally just means you are stitching in this ditch. Now this is a really precise technique, but it's not super hard. The best way to line it up is to put your foot down and then use your hand wheel and see where that needle's hitting. You wanna hit it right next to this little lip. And this is where that extra little millimeter comes in handy, is you can kind of pull it back a little bit and get even further in there, but I like to try to keep it just right there, right in that ditch. Because it's so precise, it can be helpful to either slow your machine speed down if your machine has a speed setting, or just be a little lighter on your foot so it goes slower, because the slower you do it, the more precise you're going to be able to do it. And this is it done. So on the back, ooh, kind of messy there. it's caught on the front. You can see it a little bit because the greens don't match, but for the most part it's hidden.
Bias tape. Okay, so in that, I did a stitch and a ditch. But for this, I actually just did a top stitch. So once it's flipped and folded over to the other side, you don't even bother like aiming for the ditch. You just aim for whatever you can get. And I just did top stitching because I decided to do like decorative top stitching. So the seams are all this kind of like pale gold color. I think looks very pretty. And though it does mean you have to be a little more precise with your top stitching and try to make it actually look good. Do highly recommend a cotton twill for especially beginners because it's just so incredibly easy to work with. If you feel like you're really bad at sewing, if you could use some cotton twill and you are really diligent about ironing that thing, you are gonna feel like the best sewist in the entire world because it's 100% cotton. You can use the max heat on the iron and it does everything you want it to do. And obviously a lot of this looking really clean is how well the fabric takes to being ironed. Also, I keep forgetting to say, this is the Mason Chino twill from Fabric Wholesale Direct. And I do really like it. It's a little, it costs a little more than like the polyester blend twills, which are also nice. Okay, next up, waistband. I did the waistband, I did it differently on both of them, but for both of them, the waistband is just the cotton twill actually cut on the bias. When I cut all my bias strips, I'd cut more than I needed and just ended up like, oh, let me use the bias for the waistband, which you might want to do if you want like a little bit of extra stretch, though it does lose a lot of its biasness from the fact that I put interfacing on it. I used Pellon SF 101/60 interfacing on the wrong side, but for the very first time, I've never actually done this before because I am lazy. I actually did belt loops. I really wanted belt loops with this because I knew I wanted giant pockets, and me using giant pockets means that they get heavy, and having belt loops means that I can distribute the weight of the stuff in the pockets onto my waist and not my shoulders. So I just marked where I wanted them. I only did 4. I don't know what the proper amount of belt loops is, but here they are. They're tiny strips that have been pressed on either side and sewn on either side, though huge tip, if you're going to make belt loops or any tiny little things like this, do some chain piecing. Chain piecing is when you just keep sewing, like you sew through one of them, and then when you get done, you just bring the other one up to the machine and you keep sewing. And however, make sure you do your back stitches, so your stitches will come undone, as we learned from the Great Tree video. You still got to do your back stitches even when you're chain piecing. So waistband goes on. I did also like pre-press the waistband. You don't need to do that, but because it's so thick and because the thick and the belt loops are on there, I really didn't want to be trying to press it through the belt loops and stuff. But yeah, put that right sides together with the bodice, sewed that on, obviously basted in the belt loops prior to sewing it on, so just sewed those to the top of the waistband before sewing in the waistband, basted them to the bottom, and now this is the like optional thing you can do. I'm gonna grab, this was the first one I did. So for the inside of the waistband, I wanted to face the waistband, so because it's on my waist, and if I wear this without a blouse underneath, you'll feel it. This one, I did slightly differently. This is also for the sake of hiding the interfacing, you probably don't want just interfacing on the inside of your garment. This one, the waistband is 3 layers. It's a layer of the twill, the interfacing fused to the twill, and then this is just a quilting cotton. It's actually one of my grandma's scraps. They both have grandma's scraps in them. Grandma's gonna protect us in Japan. They have grandma's love. Grandma cut this strip of blue printed quilting cotton for a quilt that never got used, and now it's in this dress. Yes, I know that's very special and very sweet. Yeah, I know I'm very special and very sweet. Anyway, this one, they just got flatlined together and serged. However, on the red one, for this one, I took my very special protective grandma magic. It's pre-pressed. You put it on there, match it up with the seam allowance of where the waistband meets the bodice. So not where the waistband is going to meet the skirt, but where the waistband meets the bodice. Flip everything away. So you've just got the seam allowance of the waistband and the bodice with that facing towards the wrong side. And you're gonna sew that into the seam allowance so that you can flip it down. We're gonna leave it open for now. What we're gonna do later is hand sew that into the skirt's seam allowance. Okay, moving on to skirt. So this was my first time doing slash pockets. I tried to look up what these freaking kinds of pockets are, but the jean pockets. The kind of pockets you see on men's jeans that are giant, that they get to enjoy, that are not usually on women's jeans. Unless you get like, maybe they are now, but when I was growing up, it was skinny jean time, and I was a skinny jean fitted t-shirt teenager, which I look back and I do this on. But yeah, these are the pockets we've all dreamed of. They are, you can see the top stitch. They are the entire length of this top stitch. These are actually like super easy to do pockets. I've just never done them before. Literally, all you do is develop the shape of the pocket and then take your front panel and install scoops into it. So this is what the front panel looks like. To like finish that scoop, you could do a lot of things. You could hem it, you could make it straighter so that you could very easily double fold hem it, or you could do what I did and bias tape it. You could face it, you could line it, you could do a lot of things. I just used bias tape because I made enough and it worked out really well. I don't know if old Sarah explained that bias tape is stronger than fabric on the grain, but because it's where they cross, it means that the fabric won't get worn out as much because it's stronger. So it is really good for high traffic areas like an armpit, a pocket, things you're going to be moving through a lot. Here's what the pocket looks like. It's just another trapezoid, but it's essentially just like matching the top corner of the skirt front panel and making it as wide and as deep as you want it, comparatively to how long the skirt is. These I added 2 dividers. I was running out of the red fabric and I had a little more of the khaki, so the dividers are actually in khaki, but you'll never see it. So I actually added another little set of dividers, so one of them just has a full, like, across the pocket divider, and then this one on the other side has, like, a phone pocket divider. I've essentially made a bag that you can wear. But yeah, then all you do is you put the front pocket on top of the pockets, you pin them together so that now the pockets form the top part of your front panel that you scooped away, and you top stitch in the pockets. You literally just go through the side of the pockets and, you know, baste them on the side and at the top, and then they're gonna get sewn into other stuff later. It's so easy. One of the things I kind of failed at with the khaki one is these fit good. They do fit. The khaki one was a little tight in the skirt. I did not give myself quite enough real estate in like the tummy department. It needed a little more real estate in the skirt. So when I was cutting the red one, I was like, well, let's do some fun side panels, get a couple extra inches in there, get a little more pleat action, get a little more wiggle room, but then more panels, more excuses to add more pockets. So the side panels are just 2 rectangles that are the same length as the side seam of the skirt. I literally didn't even print out a pattern for the skirt. I just kind of measured and cut because it's a skirt. But the side panels, I added these big patch pockets. So again, those are just double fold hem on the top, sewn onto their skirt panel on the sides. These end up going into the seams because they're kind of short, or they're not super wide panels. And then the bottom pressed, top stitched down, holds a 40-ounce water bottle, but also I added little D-rings in there for a couple reasons. I've just been like putting loops on the waists of things because they are just endlessly helpful. Skirts are just free real estate. If you didn't cut them the right size, but you have enough to cut like 2 extra strips, then just cut 2 extra strips and put giant patch pockets in them. But yeah, you sew all your skirt panels together. Nothing crazy to explain there. Lots of pressing, which is great with the cotton twill, and then sewing the skirt to the bodice. The front panel of the skirt needs to be sewn straight to the waistband, but when you get to the back panels, and what I did with my side panels is I pleated them because they were way bigger. That's what's giving me enough room to like move the pockets around, but you don't want any pleats in the front because then it'll affect your pockets. So all I did was I took the end of the skirt and the end of the waistband, brought them together, lazy lady method pleated them, which means I didn't do them on the fly. I pleated them however they wanted to pleat. Did not measure the pleats, just did them. They came out looking pretty the same, but this is the very last step is you take that extra piece of waistband, you bring it down, and then you just hand sew it in, and you get a nice like covered up waistband where you don't see the interfacing. Ooh, Ooh, I'm so proud of this thing. Here's me showing off all the different things that can go in this pocket. But I'm so happy with these. It's so cool. Oh, I never explained the zippers. Neither of them are very good because I didn't buy zippers, and so I just used what I had. This one features a metal separating zipper because I, for some reason, had a like wine-colored separating zipper that was metal that I don't know what I bought for, and I had one, and I don't know why because it looks crazy. They both look a little crazy, but I did load in the actually good and actually invisible and zippable zipper technique into my archive thing here, and so I can play it so that I didn't have to film me installing these zippers, which was not as successful as this one for free run. Because another thing you're supposed to do when you do an invisible zipper install is you're supposed to actually iron the zipper teeth open so that you can actually get in there almost under the zipper teeth when you sew it. You'll see. But you're just supposed to like use a light iron setting so you don't melt the zipper. So this is apparently how you do an actually good and actually invisible zipper technique. So instead of doing anything to the zipper, first I need to get my two sides where the zipper's gonna go. I need to get them right sides together, and I need to baste them together. A basting stitch is basically just a temporary stitch that you're gonna take out later. So you wanna do your longest stitch length on your machine so that there's less stitches of it in general, so that it's easier to take out later. Okay, we're basted. So this back seam is just together, but the stitch is not like the permanent stitch. It's a temporary stitch. So now I'm gonna press this whole seam open. So now I wanna get my zipper and I'm gonna pin it to just the seam allowance. So like, you look, I'm not pinning it to the dress. I'm just pinning it to the seam allowance. And then I'm gonna take the rest of the zipper and line up the middle of the zipper with that seam. But I'm not just gonna use the pins to hold it in there, because the next thing I'm gonna do before I machine sew it is I'm gonna hand baste the zipper tape to the seam allowance. You could just do the whole thing with pins, but I'm not gonna. I'm gonna do it the hand sewy way, because it just means that you will probably get a well-installed and probably invisible zipper. Once the hand basting stitches were in, I'm gonna take the machine basting stitches out. So not the ones I just did, the ones that aren't even on the zipper. And then to actually sew the zipper onto the seam allowance properly, I'm gonna get my invisible zipper foot, which is not like a regular zipper foot. It's this weird little foot with a hole in it, and then at the bottom there's a groove. The groove is where the zipper teeth go. So you gotta line up the zipper teeth into the groove and then sew. And I'm not doing a basting stitch anymore, so I wanna use a regular stitch length, and a regular stitch length is like 2.5. Then I'm just gonna sew the zipper to both sides, and we'll see how it comes out. Okay, I haven't taken out the basting stitches yet, but let's see how I did. How invisible is this invisible zipper? Damn! The only issue, the cotton twill is so ding dang heavy, and I've made this one really long. It goes all the way down to my ankles. It's a maxi. The issue with this now is I do think I might need to shorten this red one. It looks so cute with the length that it is. I really don't want to shorten it because it's so cute, but I have two concerns. The cotton twill is pretty heavy, and that means when I'm not wearing this, that's a lot of added weight to the suitcase for one piece. However, this is so useful. I'm going to wear this a lot. There's a lot of stairs in Japan. There's going to be a lot of going up and down train station stairs with everything we have with us. And part of the reason of doing a capsule wardrobe is to keep that lighter. And so I have kind of done a disservice to myself by making this dress so long and in such a heavy fabric. However, I fucking love it. So it might just be the on travel days, Sarah wears this one. Oh, and I didn't even tell you all of like the secret features of this. So there's also this strap right here. This I feel like is one of the most useful things I added, because this is what this can be. Maybe we've gone shopping somewhere and I've brought like a reusable tote bag. One of the things that drives me crazy about reusable tote bags is how they don't stay on your shoulder. Carabiner, tote bag, right here, not moving. Hands-free tote bagging. Tote. Got Got a lot of Hank buttons today. Am I onto something here? Are these awesome? I have a small inspirational speech. It's very short, but we have to use the Dover button every time, so even if this is all I can think of, we're getting a short inspirational speech today. In a world of fast fashion, it's easier than ever to get clothing based on any whim. But try as you might, it's nearly impossible to find something sturdy, functional, and not made of polyester. But when you know what you want and you commit to bringing it to life, you not only gain a tactical, practical jumper skirt with a pocket for a 40-ounce water bottle, but also the satisfaction of knowing that you made it with your own hands and the ability to say korejibun de tsukuta nda. Please do roast my Japanese pronunciation so that I will get better at it. I'll let Dover finish out. That my speech wasn't even long enough for the full entirety of Dover. Does anyone in here speak Japanese?